Hi, my name is Richard Fisher. I am the publisher of Inside Unmanned Systems, and we are broadcasting from the Xponential floor 2024 in beautiful San Diego, California. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. Tell us about Inspired Flight. You've been at it some time. Yeah,
I have. Yeah, I was actually one of the co-founders of the business.
What caused you to decide to wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm inspired to develop a brand of a UAS platform?
Sure.
What was it? What did you see in the market? What was there a specific gap, or is that tell us about it?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say I kind of serendipitously ended up in the drone industry.
Okay.
As many of us do.
Like all
right?
of us. It's
But I was fortunate enough to meet my fellow co-founder who has a robotics engineering background at a tech incubator when basically there were some ideas on paper of motor technology is really where we got our start. So the real genesis of the company bridged from when my fellow co-founder Mark, who in 2015-2016 timeframe was trying to do back then what were really unique drone applications. And if you fast forward to today, what are really kind of standard commercial applications of the drone technology.
Right.
We were up against really two fronts. The available off-the-shelf, mainly DJI equipment available back then, wasn't customizable enough or accessible enough to kind of do the applications
and
you're trying to do.
This
is 2015.
Okay, 2015. Yeah. So this is kind of post after the DJI buzz of like Phantom. This is the days of Phantom 4.
I think. Exactly. That.
Yeah.
I think they maybe had just come out with the Phantom 4.
Yep.
RTK was coming out.
Yep.
But so the other side of that was when DJI or the off-the-shelf equipment available couldn't do it, go to build your own equipment.
Yep.
And the available componentry on the market was not up to snuff for the industrial market, right? We were buying 10 motors to get 4 that worked reliably.
Wow, okay.
So our initial business was as a components manufacturer. Our initial IP and patents were in our motor technology, power distribution.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow.
And then
really
quickly realized that wasn't going to be a very scalable business model.
Yeah.
Because DJI wasn't going to buy our components.
Right.
So we started building commercial drone platforms and launched our first kind of full commercial drone platform, which was the IF750, and actually was one of the first Blue UAS certified platforms on the Blue UAS 2.0.
So let's talk about Blue UAS for just a minute. Inside Unmanned Systems, in the current issue, we've got an article on Blue UAS. We understand the need for Blue UAS, that for a period of years, even DoD, believe it or not, was using Chinese manufactured drones. And somebody decided that wasn't a very good idea. And then Blue UAS through the Defense Innovation Unit really kind of codified, what Blue UAS was, what it is not, what do you need to do. Frankly, I was kind of surprised by some of the companies that might have a history with Chinese manufacturers, very frankly.
Absolutely.
But I think that's being kind of, vetted out. And so tell us about, from your perspective, from a person that's actually got the Blue UAS, a designation, what does that mean to your customers? And what does that mean in terms of kind of supply chain and the value that you can bring to bear to the user communities?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll start by saying Inspired Flight was really well positioned, I think, to capitalize on this introduction of Blue UAS. Because when we got our start in 2017, about 4 years before the first NDA, Section 848 in 2020, we had already decided when we were founded to be an American manufacturer, stay away from a Chinese supply chain. So we were really well positioned to capitalize on that. But what has Blue UAS done for the industry? I think it's really given, to some extent, the American drone manufacturer, American supply chain, a chance to really bring a critical technology back home, right? And I guess whatever side of the argument you fall on, whether it's good for the industry, it's bad for the industry, it's kind of enabling something that I think America has really lost over the past 30 years, which is our ability to manufacture what we develop and what we create. So Blue UAS it's a fantastic opportunity, especially focused on the defense space in the DoD, where it really originated in serving our American military with American goods.
Yeah.
I think Blue UAS has certainly blossomed a little bit, right? And at its core, it's still a program designed for and intended for DoD operators. But I think that list and kind of what goes into becoming a Blue UAS manufacturer has really trickled down into critical infrastructure, other federal government agencies, a lot of industrial kind of backbone industries of our country. Because what Blue UAS is really made up of to get approved on Blue UAS, it's primarily made of two things. It's a supply chain verification and supply chain testing that you're using friendly sourced components. And then the other side, I think the bigger portion of it that people don't think about as often is cybersecurity testing and the cybersecurity vulnerabilities and making sure that platforms are designed for effectively the warfighter, right?
Sure.
What the program is intended for.
Yeah. So you've got good experience in DoD, not by kind of intention originally, but just by performance and capability, and the fact that you were U.S. made. Good for you. That's great. But do your industrial customers in kind of the most common user segments, whether it's energy or utilities or inspection, survey and mapping, does the Blue UAS designation and having that kind of military pedigree, and if this is good enough for the U.S. warfighter, does that help kind of provide a level of comfort in terms of performance and capability to your industrial partners? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said it perfectly, right? That thinking of, hey, if this passed testing, supply chain, cybersecurity, airworthiness by DoD operators, it's going to be good enough for my business. So that trickle down effect has really started to affect Department of Transportation type companies, critical infrastructure, energy utilities, and that exact line of thinking of, hey, we can get a head start on vetting a company by the fact that the American government has already done so. So absolutely, that has kind of trickled down into the larger market. And what the Blue UAS list is for a lot of folks is, and for companies like us, to some extent, it's the list that enables us to sell to warfighters in the Department of Defense. But it's also a fantastic marketing tool. There's so many critical infrastructure companies, folks that are looking for drone technology, whether American or not, that start their search at the Blue UAS list, right? Because it's basically a pre-vetted list of, hey, these are high-quality aircraft that are out in the market en masse. We're not going to be the guinea pigs to use it and deploy it on our infrastructure. That's really it.
That's a really good point, because the argument has been and continues to this day, as you well know, that, hey, I need to fly a different platform because I've got to hit a price point. And I'm doing long linear inspection for a large multinational oil and gas concern, as an example, right? And they think they have to hit a price point. But if I want to do a U.S. made Blue UAS, the project's going to cost X dollars more. Hey, I'm a drone service provider. I'll do whatever my customer wants, but you know what? Let's do it at the lower cost. I think that is an absolute false argument, because you're competing with yourself. Why then? Who decided? What is your pricing strategy? What is your pricing model? My God, why you're the one setting the price, setting the market. We're not. The days of the cowboys and the two guys, a drone and a pickup truck. Those are beginning to kind of go away. There's plenty of competent drone service providers, but now we're really starting to do it at some scale, right?
We are.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is that I applaud your initiative to make that case for security, for supply chain integrity, and to know that there's not some weird backdoor data cyber issue. I'm not saying that there is, and I'm not saying, but God knows, right?
Right.
So talk a little bit about, and that's the case you're making, basically, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and I think there's also, if you go back a few years when Blue UAS really started, you were absolutely seeing hey, if I want to buy an American drone as a, let's say you're an electric utility, I'm going to spend 3 times the amount to get the similar but arguably worse capability out of what I can get out of China. It's not really the case today. I think the industry has really started to hit an inflection point of some scale, even just walking around Xponential. When I came to the show for the first time, I think 6 years ago, and have gone every year since, every year there were new companies, right? And what we're starting to see now is there's a little bit of reliability in this space, in that there are folks, I believe, like Inspired Flight, of course I'm biased, right, that have kind of been around for a long time. Like, we've been around since 2016 in the drone industry. That's quite a while. We have
dog years.
We have across both of our platforms on our heavier lift system, over 500 of those aircraft fielded. Our 800 that we just launched, we're planning to ship 30 this month, looking at about 400 for this year. So the industry is really starting to scale. And I think if you, like, let's take Inspired Flight for example, our systems, if you look at the kind of comparative Chinese product, yes, we are absolutely more expensive because we're building things with an American supply chain. We don't have government subsidies to really force us along, but we're really in that spitting range of what you can get out of China. Our goal and kind of the bogey for our company is to be within that 20 to 25% higher cost. And the folks that are using this technology now, like you said, not the 2 guys in a pickup truck, kind of these enterprise industrial companies that are building large programs of these drone fleets, those numbers don't scare them.
Not at all. And in fact, when you actually consider the opportunity cost or the downside to have some disruption in your mission plan, your ConOps gets disrupted. The mission set objectives are disrupted. You've got a service problem. I'm pretty sure it's a lot easier to get in touch with you guys than it is some others. I'm not suggesting you've got reliability issues necessarily, but at some point when there's continual downward price pressure, self-inflicted, by the way, if you want the cheap stuff, you can go buy it. But the reality is that the people that are, as you say, both enterprise user as well as critical national infrastructure, the CI market is massive amount. Whether we're talking about ports, airports, critical infrastructure like nuclear facilities. These are places that you can't miss. You can't have an issue. The downside is too significant.
I think you're exactly right. Like, we live in a capitalist society. There's always going to be downward price pressure. People want to pay the least for the most value. I completely agree with that. But what we're also seeing is the biggest factor for these companies now, as they scale, it's all about capability. It's all about, hey, can the American product, whether it's more expensive or not, can it deliver me the same value that I've relied on for my program for years?
Got it.
So that's really what's critical, I think, for American drone manufacturers. It's about the product at the end of the day. It's not about country of origin. It's about, can I build a tool that is safe, reliable, and is effectively solving the customer's problem? Great
point. So now that we've addressed all those issues, let's talk about your platform, shall we? You've got the 1200.
We do.
And the new platform?
Yeah, the new platform is the IF-800 Tomcat.
IF-800 Tomcat. Okay.
Yeah. Our CEO's former naval submariner and kind of harkens back to his days when the F-14 was around and how the IF-800's wings kind of swing back for storage.
Okay.
There was a little bit of similarity. He came in one day, he's like, this is the name.
All right, cool. You go with it. Tell us about it. Tell us about the platform. Tell us about the feature set.
Sure. Yeah, so our focus as a company kind of across our platforms, our Inspired Flight's niche is really in the medium and heavy lift space of the market. We don't really focus on the Mavic, Skydio sized platforms. So really aircraft that can carry sizable payloads that deliver tremendous value, quality data.
And sizable means heavy. Which means generally expensive.
Yes,
if you're going to pay to, so it could be, like a hyperspectral or a.
I think the most expensive sensor package that I've ever seen put on one of our IF-1200A systems was about $350,000.
Were you nervous?
I was nervous, but that's why we've got a really fantastic motor out capability. We've got incredible QC processes available. So the IF-1200A.
Probably to hoist something that expensive, a sophisticated payload like that, you really need that kind of capability. And talk about the feature set in terms of stability, in terms of landing and recovery. What makes it so well suited for those expensive, really expensive payloads?
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, what it gets down to is robustness and ruggedness of the systems.
Okay.
Right, we are manufacturing at some scale systems with kind of an aircraft manufacturer philosophy. We're not building toys. We're not building inexpensive tools. We're delivering systems that need to go out and perform. Because a day of downtime, as you were kind of talking about, a day of downtime is a massive disruption to these businesses. So everything we build needs to be able to go around that. So the first and foremost focus for Inspired Flight is always safety and reliability. But secondarily to that, I think where we've really started to establish a niche as a business is a focus on full system integrations. So not delivering to the door of an end user, hey, here's your aircraft, figure out how to integrate something and go do your job.
Right.
We've really focused on bringing in the integration of multiple different cameras, from RGB to EO/IR thermal sensors, multispectral, hyperspectral, of course things like LiDAR, and really providing a way to deliver that capability to an end user to go do their jobs. We build, electric multi-rotors. Our AUV-1200 carries up to 20 pounds of payload under the 55-pound limit.
Nice.
We've got about 6.5 on our new AUV-800 Tomcat. But extremely portable, transportable, bring them on commercial aircraft. Breakdown and deployment times, we usually quote under 2 minutes.
No kidding. Wow.
And especially for when you get into public safety or defense applications.
Sure.
They fly fast, they fly agilely. Is that a word? They have a lot of agility there.
Agilely.
Yeah, exactly. They're agile. And what's important is they're reliable and that they're supported for years to come. One of the Blue UAS requirements to become a Blue UAS manufacturer is you actually have to kind of commit to supporting your aircraft for 5 years, which is real.
Sounds easy. What does that really mean?
Yeah, exactly. This industry has gotten
we're going to
to
support. We got you covered.
Exactly.
We got you.
This industry's gotten so used to drone manufacturers coming out with a product, then a year later going back to their order, hey, we're not supporting that anymore. Give me another however many $1,000 to get you new and upgraded. It's completely against our mantra as well as a lot of the other Blue UAS manufacturers. What that means is spare parts are available for a minimum amount of time.
Got it.
Software updates are coming for that amount of time. One of the things I think that really sets Inspired Flight apart that no other manufacturer, at least that I've found in this space, does, is we have a up to 3-year warranty available in our systems. And for us to offer that to customers and not being able to commit to it would be a very terrible business mistake, because that would be very expensive if we decided to not support a product. And we've got these warranties out there, so it boils down to business fundamentals. Sure.
And so let's talk about some use cases. You're seeing good kind of uptake in what kind of user communities? Who are the kind of customers that are saying, yeah, you know what, this makes good sense to me. My customer is that important to me that I cannot tolerate any downtime. I need absolute reliability, robustness, precision in terms of navigation, high quality materials, known supply chain, and oh, by the way, I need support that I can rely on. So who are the people to whom that business case makes a lot of sense?
Sure. Yeah, I think,
and by name, specifically. No, I'm kidding. But who are these user communities? Where does that resonate most? What are you learning?
Yeah, I think, and I'll keep it somewhat to what Inspired Flight is focusing on. Our really the 4 biggest categories of our business. Of course, we've got the federal government and the defense side because of the Blue UAS nature and reliability. Of course, I think you can imagine why that'd be critical to them. We're also seeing a ton of adoption in the electric utility space. Electric utility as well as other utility, oil and gas. And what we're seeing is a big adoption of American NDA compliant blue technology, if you will, really from a risk mitigation standpoint. Or like you said, if these companies have invested massive amounts of money and created these incredible back ends in their programs to support drone deployments, and all of a sudden that switch gets shut off where you're grounded, you can't use this technology. Whether or not that will happen, risk mitigation is the name of the game for electric utilities.
Great point.
Right?
Great point.
I think that.
By the way, those are all. I mean, these are public utilities.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
it's not a stretch of the imagination to anticipate some of that.
No, everything about
Really
a
good
utility is downtime, right?
Yep.
Is mitigating downtime, because any sort of downtime or inaccessibility to power for their customers is obviously upset customers.
Sure.
But more importantly, fines, right?
And the utility the ConOps of the utility missions are they LiDAR? Because of the vegetation, or is it just inspection, or talk a little bit about that?
LiDAR is an absolutely growing one, and I think where the kind of the inflection point for LiDAR in the space for electric utility, and specifically like right-of-way vegetation management, is when, unfortunately, and I'm from California, when PG&E in Northern California had terrible wildfires that were caused by vegetation encroachment that weren't caught in inspections. That, I think, ignited the fuse for utilities across the nation of that lawsuit, that $6 billion settlement. It's a lot more expensive than deploying a drone program.
Risk mitigation.
Absolutely.
Got it.
So risk mitigation. So we're seeing a lot of LiDAR inspection, both for vegetation management, right-of-way inspection, as well as kind of creating digital twins for their QA, QC engineers to bring in, and as well as plan new systems. But what we're also seeing is, I think, where utilities initially started to adopt drone technology, which is in inspections, using a combination of RGB, multispectral, radiometric thermal data to do
whatever's necessary, right?
Absolutely.
Inspect.
And I think what I love about the drone industry is a lot of the applications that we're solving with UAS technology aren't necessarily new applications. We've been inspecting, electric utilities have been inspecting their assets ever since there were assets to begin with. But what we can do with drones is take people out of hazardous situations. You can do it more efficiently, and you can do it much cheaper over the long term.
Sure. The dull, the dirty, and dangerous, as we say, right? So, in addition to government, utilities, surveying, mapping?
Surveying, mapping, the geospatial side is huge for us, especially because of our focus on heavy lift. Right? There's not that much kind of heavy lift systems available in the industry.
Right.
So surveying and mapping, the need to use, let's say, expensive LiDARs like we were talking about, bathymetric LiDAR, transportation infrastructure modeling, large-scale surveying and mapping for construction, for property development, kind of the backbones of our industry, the backbones of our nation, and where every project starts in geospatial adjacent somewhere or another.
Big time.
Yeah, so that's a huge focus for us. We're seeing that, and then I'd say kind of the fourth area for us, especially with the new launch of our IF-800 Tomcat, which is a much smaller portable aircraft, is in the public safety space. So some of the new, really incredible applications that are coming online, like drone as a first responder. We happen to be in the city that has the most impressive drone as a first responder program in the country with Chula Vista Police.
We've covered them more than a couple of times. They're doing really innovative stuff.
It's really impactful work. I mean, I went to, this is going back a few years, I went to one of their first kind of announcements and showcases of the technology to the public, and just hearing some of the officers' stories of the specific example that I remember was they were called out to an armed robbery. And it was one of the first deployments of drones, and one of these bad actors, guy with a gun, was hiding in a dumpster that the folks that coming on the ground would have had no clue was in there, really putting themselves in harm's way. But they were able to identify that with the drone before personnel reached the scene, surround it, and kind of mitigate the problem without any harms in the any lives in the way.
Wow, that's impressive. And we've covered first responders pretty. We've done entire issues on the subject. And back in the early days, Chula Vista, for example, it was really well-meaning, well-intentioned police officers, who's brought their drone to work,
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how it began, and they couldn't get budget, and they couldn't get, enough dollars allocated, and then they realized just the multiplicity of use cases that they could, there's no downside what a UAS, what a drone can do for first responders is absolutely remarkable.
It's game-changing.
And now we're they're getting funded. They're actually spending money, and it's really changing the kind of capabilities they can bring to bear to the local communities. Yeah.
And I think one of the things I've been noticing, certainly in the public safety, but across even, let's say, electric utilities, is the public adoption of the technology has been really good. I think the connotation that went with drones 10, 15 years ago, it's a very different connotation than today. So people are much more accepting of the technology. They recognize the life-saving capabilities and cost reduction, and at the end of the day, more money in their, more value out of their taxpayer money that drones can bring to society.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, is there anything else that you'd like to mention about the 800 Tomcat that we didn't touch on? Some capabilities or performance features?
I can talk about my products all day. So I'll say is there's been 4 payloads kind of from all the applications we discussed that were launched with the IF800.
Got it.
Dealers around the nation have now have units in stock. They're available. You can go get a demo of the system and just really see go kick its tires or its propellers, if you will, and see what it can do for you.
That's awesome. Before I let you go, talk to us, having been in the space for 9 years, and we've been here, this is my 15th Xponential, and it was much smaller 15 years ago. But what do you see in terms of, how do you view the impact on the rules on beyond visual line of sight when it's happening, the waivers that are being, allowed? I mean, a lot of people flying under waivers, but also, ops over people.
Sure.
What is the regulatory environment's impact on some of those, industrial market segments that we talked about? And what's your view as in the coming years? How does that evolve and kind of develop? And what is the role of inspired flight in being able to deliver capabilities to them? And that's a long question.
No, that is, but I think the regulatory side of it is critical to this industry, right? In coordination with the FAA, with public safety agencies, the COAs that they're operating under. And I think going back to where I started in the industry, you really started to see the technology was a little bit ahead of the regulatory environment. And not to say that it isn't today, but I think we're starting to see those work more in parallel with like how many more BV loss waivers are being granted. Folks in government, certainly with organizations like AUVSI's help, I think have been really listening to the users in terms of what do we need from a regulatory standpoint to take this industry from companies deploying some R&D engineers on to use drones and to see if it's a viable use case to, we understand what it can do for our business, now let's deploy this at scale. And I think without kind of some of the regulatory advancements in recent years, that wouldn't really be happening, which would mean companies like Inspired Flight are kind of get stuck, right? Because we need scale, we need the ability to sell to keep growing as a company.
I totally get it, and I totally agree, and that's why we at Inside Unmanned Systems really focus on enterprise users, government users. We want to do it at scale, and when you look more broadly at the market and you look at the rate of penetration that drones have in these various industrial market segments, we are still woefully penetrated. I mean, the rate of adoption, we have a long way to go. So if business has been good, thus far, boy, it's going to get a whole lot more interesting in the coming years.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank Inspired Flight for being here today. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed our discussion. And if they would like to, if somebody's here in San Diego would like to learn more, they should visit your booth where?
3317.
3317 for Inspired Flight. Thanks, everybody. That's it for now, and we'll see you on the next live stream.
Thank you.